born in New Zealand, in middle of the North Island of New Zealand, and reared on a country property, on a dairy farm of all places, which is a very precious way to be brought up, really, when I reflect back. And then moved to the city to go to university. Actually studied medicine. I studied as a nurse, actually, to start with, and then I went to university. And then I started to travel. In a funny sort of a way, as a child, I used to watch my sister pray, and I used to think, well, I'm supposed to be doing that. Well, she used to tell me I should be doing that. And so I would, and I could feel a certain level of sweetness from it, but not much else. It was more like something I was just copying her, really. But there was something there. And then when I got into my teens, I started to get curious about Christianity. Well, even though I was, deemed a Christian, I hadn't done much with it through my childhood. But as a teenager, I thought, let's go and have a look at this religion. And so this partner, when I think we're 17, we decided to spend our Sundays going to all the different Christian churches, just to see what was going on, really, and find out what they were doing. And what was it they were teaching that could be of any value? And didn't find anything that really either of us really were really interested in. And so then really, I suppose, I can remember we used to be I especially used to be very proud of being able to say, when there was conversation amongst the young group of us, that I wasn't an atheist, but I was agnostic, that I knew something existed out there, but I had no idea what it was. I couldn't get aligned with where Christianity was going. So, and I didn't at that time start looking anywhere else. And then life got a hold of me, as it can do. I started studying, and I was already studying, but got into that. And then, of course, the idea of travel, and then relationships and work. And I was never big on developing or getting a career. That was sort of secondary to me. But when I started to get this sense of the feeling of starting to question, starting to look deeper, starting to have these deep and meaningful conversations, which started again in my 20s. Was a silly time, and I always look back and think 20s, but 30s I started to open again. And at that time in my 30s, I was questioning, but in my questions I was sort of asking, which way to go and what to do. And I knew that this relationship I was in was not where I needed to be. I felt compromised. And it was totally myself that was compromising my life. And so I just had to, after 12 years, decided, that this is just not where I can be anymore. And so that's, as I say, when I decided to, we finished, sold the house, and I got a one-way ticket just to go. And that was when I started to collect books, or start to really read books. And it was only at that time as well that I started to gather a different set of people around me who had more interest in, life in the universe. And as one of my friends said, he used to call me the Cosmic Queen, because I had all this interest in all these sorts of things. And we used to, this whole new group now that I was part of, we'd stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning just getting so into life in the universe and the deeper meaningfuls of life. Loved every second of it. And I suppose in a way, combined with that and the travel was, the reading. And I started reading, amazingly, can you imagine, one of the books that started me off was Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb. It's amazing the service she's done actually through that book, really. Even though it's now, anyway, wouldn't really look back to it, but it played a very significant role in my journey. And then I started to move from that into things like Paramahansa Yogananda and the autobiography of him, and many other things I was reading as I travelled and talked to many different people, and the beauty of being able to be on the road, as I said, it expands your consciousness. It takes you away from, being so caught as we can be, of course, in roles and life and everything that goes with it. So luckily, I had the fortune, because I had the funds from my house. I could stay on the road for quite some years, but I worked as well. I had the ability to be able to work in Europe as well. So I had quite a great life. But at the same time, deep down there was this calling that I had to start doing something more with my life. And interestingly enough, when I did get back to Australia, I was driving along one day with this friend, and she was in the sport. We're in the sports car, her sports car. She was into all these sorts of things, and I just remember looking over it, and it was very surreal. And I just had this sense of like, and I was moving in this thing anyway. And I said, I've just got to spend my life doing voluntary work. But there was things starting to come out of my mouth that didn't know where they came from. I'd never really thought deeply about any of them. They just come out. And I thought, no, my life's got to be for voluntary. It's got to be for humanity now. This was when I was 34, I think. Maybe earlier, I think. Maybe 32, 33. And then not so long after that, and actually I'd started to move into this concept of omnipresence, of starting to believe in this kind of energy that permeated everything. And we're starting to think that this was maybe what God was. And then what happened after that was I woke up one morning, that's right, and the strangest thing came out of my mind, and it was like, what can I do for you today, God? What can I do for you? And in that weird statement, it totally dispelled the idea of omnipresence. It was like, there is the existence, an entity, presence of this being that exists. And I thought, I've got to get to know this being. It exists. How can I spend my time being so caught up in all these other things when there's this being that's there? I've got to get to find it and know it, So that's how it all started, really. The memory, as you're saying, it's sort of moving through that. I think when we sit in silence and listen to the heartbeat of the world, listen to what other souls of the world are going through, we know that there is going to be a huge change, a huge shift coming. And am I ready for it? And really just at that level, in this of knowing that time, that am I spiritually prepared, so that whatever is to come and is to happen, I can rise above it and not be at all disturbed if there is that level of, disturbance that will come. But to be in that, to know that this is the time to to become once more that pure being of the soul. And it's in that consciousness, and especially if I can connect that, the spirit, in with that Supreme Spirit or God, those two connected, soul, Supreme Soul, I'm indomitable, I'm impenetrable. It doesn't matter what is going on around me. No matter what upheaval is going on, I won't be affected. And also then, with my ability to stay so connected with him and being able to take from him, what happens? It's extraordinary that I can then be one who can serve. And this is where the memory of angels comes from. If I can keep my consciousness so clean, so clear, so stable that he can work through it, then I can be of use to others on this planet. Because if people are getting disturbed by all manner of things now, even the smallest things people get disturbed by, if they have got some others around them that have got some level of, they can become like a rock to them, to be able to be of support. If I can support through just being a conduit or an instrument for the power and love and peace of the Supreme to be able to work through me, for the God to work through me, how extraordinary that is. And the only way to do that, is to keep my consciousness primed and, do that daily routine to keep it clean,